Okay, not bad. Okay, related to your homework that was due today and really important topic of function notation, I want to talk about that function notation and also graphing calculator. It will do whatever you tell it to do. So if it's not doing what you want it to do, it's not the problem. The graphing calculator is not the problem, right? So you have to go back and really think about what are you instructing it to do. So let's talk about function notation that can tend to be confusing. So in this first command line here, I've defined s of k equals to k plus square root of k. So my first question is, given the function defined in graphing calculators above, what is the role of k here? What is the role of k as I've defined s of k? Okay, input. Okay, it's the input, it's the independent variable. Okay, that's true. But what role does it play? What does graphing calculator, how does it see k, or what role does it play in graphing calculator's mind? Is that a stretch or an answer?
Those are the quantities that it's going to be creating to create a point with another quantity.
Okay. Quantities to create a point. Yes, sir?
Values on the x-axis.
Values on the x-axis. Okay, is it going to associate with, if I type in s of k equals k plus radical k, is it going to be thinking about the x-axis? Did we prompt it to do anything with the x-axis? Did we prompt it to graph? Oh, sorry. Close your laptops. Don't put this in. So we want to think about it, not just see what it does and then kind of go on. So we want to think about it and predict. So again, so close your laptops. Don't look. Don't be printing or typing and checking while I do this. So is it going to invoke graphing calculator to graph?
No.
Because what invokes graphing calculator to graph?
Y.
Y or X. Okay? If you put Y or X in a command line, now you're telling it to graph. So it's not going to tell it to graph. Again, so then what is the role of K? What is K about there? What does graphing calculator interpret that? K, yes sir?
It's supposed to be an x or a variable.
When you say it's supposed to be an X, like I made a typo?
Oh no. Well, you can in that if you're trying to get it to graph, you want k or s to be a function, so you can do it as x instead of k.
Okay, so it's not about what I'm trying to do. I put this in and we wanted to say, what is that telling graphing calculator? Yeah.
K is just acting as like an input, so you
Okay.
set k equal to something, and then it could give you an output of s.
Okay, it's an input, so if you set k equal to something, then what will this do if you set k equal to something? Yes, sir?
K is a variable that you define, and you define it as
It plugs into S of k. So what will it do with then? How about if I do S of, what was I going to do first? 2. So what if in the next command line I put S of 2? What are we telling graphic calculator to do? Are we telling it to graph something? Are we telling it to solve something, will it say, no, I don't get it, I don't know what to, because I have to, does it need to have a k there? Will it say, no, can't do it, I need to have a k there? So what will it do? Solve it, what do you mean?
And you would plug 2 in for k.
We plug 2 in for k. So what does it think we're asking for? A number. What number? What solution?
What is f of k if k equals 2?
Okay. What is, so it will, she's saying it will return to us what s of k would be if k was 2. And what would that be? What is it? What's that?
2 plus rad 2.
2 plus rad 2. So it gave me this number, 3.141421. And that number is 2 plus rad 2. The function s is defining a set of instructions on what to do with that value k, whatever's in the parentheses. S is going to complete that set of instructions on whatever's in the parentheses. Okay? What about if I put in S of A? So, will it graph? Will it reject this statement? Will it do something else? What if I put in S of A? Instead of S2, I'm going to put in SA. What will happen? What's that?
Nothing will happen.
Nothing. Why not?
Because it's going to assume that A is 1.
Okay, it's going to assume A is 1.
So something will happen.
What's that?
So something will happen then if it
Well,
assumes a is 1.
the answer of 1 or 1 with rad 1.
He's saying it will return the answer of 1 plus rad 1. Somebody else? Yes, sir?
Actually, nothing will happen if we haven't defined A yet at all.
And when we have, do you remember what happens when we haven't defined a parameter? It does assign a value to it. Do you remember what that is? 1. So when you haven't done anything and you just introduce a parameter, it'll just start it at 1 by default. Is this what we expected? So it's okay to put A in there. So k is called a local variable. It's local to our definition of the function. It's just saying, okay, whatever's in that parentheses, I'm going to do this set of instructions on whatever in the parentheses to return a value. Okay, what if I were to put in y equals s of, say, 3? What if my command line was this? Y equals s of 3. Okay, she said it would graph. Will it graph something? Yeah, we're putting a y in, so it's going to graph something. So the question is, what will the graph look like if I put in y equals s of 3? So I want you to find someone, you're going to meet someone new because you're sitting in new places. Talk about that. What will it graph? Y equals s of 3. Go.
I know. It could give me one.
You only get one answer. You only get one answer.
Yeah. Oh, I can't. That would be well on there. No.
Okay, somebody new. What was your idea? What did you think? Yes, sir.
It'll graph the solid line because S of 3 is a it gives you a value.
S of 3 is a value.
So it would be like it would be 3 plus rad 3.
3 plus rad 3.
So it'll just be like graphing y equals 3 plus rad 3, and it'll be a solid horizontal line.
He wants a horizontal line. Y equals 3 plus rad 3. They're nodding. Anybody else think of something different? So y equals, what did I say? S of 3? Did it graph the function S of k? Did it graph the function S of k? Meaning the relationship of inputs to outputs for that rule, k plus radical k. Is that what it graphed?
For that one example.
It only graph that one solution.
No, it graphed something different. It graphed y equals a constant. S of 3, when you say S of 3, you just told it to compute a number. And then it said graph that number, y equals that constant value, which is just a constant line. It really has very little to do with the function S of k, except that it's the output value at 3. Okay? But for y equals S, that value is the output everywhere. So this has very little to do with S of k. Do you see? So how do I get it to graph that? Now I want to see the graph of S of k. What should I put in? What should my command line be to graph S of k? Y equals S of k. What do you think? Y equals S of k. S of x. All right, so if we graphed y equals S of k, what do you think, what will it do?
It'd be another horizontal line constant.
Just be one.
No, it'd be two.
Okay, so if we do S of k, so we've made it our local variable here in that line, but just k anywhere else is going to have the value of what? K. 1. So S of k will be 2. This won't graph the function. You see? It won't graph the function because, again, S of k, in this line, it's saying, oh, you must mean k equals 1. Okay? It only takes on the input here in this local, as a local variable there. Okay, so how are we going to graph this function? Change k to x. Now we're graphing that function. Why? Because what are we saying? What is it expecting here in the parentheses?
Input.
It's expecting, and what's it going to do with the input?
Put it into many points.
So x represents many values on the horizontal axis, and for each one of those values, it's going to do what?
Put into k plus graph k.
Right. It's going to take, for many values, every value on the x-axis, it's going to follow this set of instructions and give a point. Then it's going to change x and give another point. Then it's going to change x and give another point. So that's what graphs S of k. So many of you, in your homework, you did something similar to this. What about S of x equals k plus radical k? Does this define a function with a set of instructions on the input of taking the input and adding the square root of the input? Yes, sir.
It'll just end up being S of x equals 2 again because we haven't defined k yet.
Okay. So you were using this k and we want it to be this to be the set of instructions, but our k isn't in the parentheses. The parentheses is the input variable on which graphing calculator will do the set of instructions, but we haven't put k in there. So if I hit graph right now, what's it going to graph?
2.
2 again, because right now the graphing calculator, k is 1 plus 1, that's 2, so this function is a constant function, S of x is 2. So if I graph y, I'm just going to graph y equals 2 again. And that's what many of you did. When you defined your function originally in your homework, problem number 3, you did something similar to this. Whatever your input variable or variables is, those have to be the ones that match up with the symbols that you're using for the set of instructions. You don't want S of x, we want that to be our set of instructions, we want S of k. Okay, does it make sense? This function notation stuff, so there's 2 things going on here. Really understanding function notation and what things represent, and then also then as a result, getting graphing calculator to do exactly what we want it to do. And that comes out of really having to understand this function notation. And this is going to be critical when things get harder. Working with calculus and trying to represent things in this software, we're going to really have to have this function notation down, really understand it. So we're gonna practice more of that today. Anybody have a question on that? Okay, so I'm gonna come around, and just for those who are saved on your laptop, you didn't email me, I'm gonna come around and check. But I have an exercise for you first. What I want you to do is this is 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. Okay, and this is black over here. This is red. This is blue. This is pink. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to recreate that graph. Okay, it won't have any of the writing that I've written, just the rectangle. Okay, so I want you to open up a new window in Graphing Calculator and reproduce that rectangle. That's just a warm-up exercise for the thing I'm going to have you do next. And then as soon as so I encourage you to find a partner to work through this with. As soon as you're done with that, then you can begin on this. So what I'll do is I'll just stack them up here. And I want you to don't be distracted. So make sure you get that, and then come up and grab a packet. Let me just talk about the packet briefly here. This is really important. It's 4 pages long. It's kind of a worksheet. It's a combination of continuing to teach you features of Graphing Calculator at the same time practicing all this, understanding all this function notation. So it's both happening at once. Go slow through this, okay? If you start whizzing through and you forget about the problem before, you're gonna hit roadblocks all over the place. Go really slow, think through everything, absorb it fully before you go on to the next question, okay? So go on the rectangle.